Smile. Hi, it's Penni Z. It's Tuesday night at 6:30, so it's time for What We're Reading. Tonight's guest was scheduled to be Terri DeBoer. If you're watching, you'll notice Terri has grown a beard and aged a little bit. Actually, it's polar vortex time, so you can't expect Terri to pull herself away and talk about books. But she is going to reschedule, so please look for that in our calendar. She will be back. So tonight, I have my trusty hubby, Mike Zergabel, formerly of the Kelloggsville Library, and he's going to talk tonight about, well, I have to ask the question first, babe. Don't hold that up until I ask the question. Mike Zergabel, what are you reading?
This is a little bit of a stretch. It's nonfiction, which is my go-to. But Ronan Farrow, this book just caught my interest, The Catch and Kill about Harvey Weinstein. And it was interesting.
Now, I get that the book by Ronan Farrow is about the Harvey Weinstein issue. What's the title, Catch and Kill? What?
Well, there was just a systemic cover-up for Harvey at every level of corporate Hollywood. And the women that stepped forward, and it was almost exclusively women, because they were the abused in the situation, of course. But there were some men that tried to speak up and got squashed. But, after years and years, it finally caught up with them. That typical pattern that you hear about, it caught up with Harvey, and some women stepped forward and risked everything, professional reputations and their livelihood.
But what did he mean by catch and kill?
Well, the part of Harvey's MO was paying off people. So the story would, come up, and then, someone would get a part in a movie, and that would tend to, make them less likely to, complain.
I still don't get it. So is he killing their career? Is he catching them and killing their career? What
was the theme was the catch and kill was the anything of a derogatory nature, and there was literally Israeli ex-spies that were involved in this.
Oh my goodness!
They would dig up dirt on the victim and threaten them with, blackmail them into not revealing their relationship with Harvey and the abuse that they suffered at his hands. So it was just fascinating and just jaw-dropping as far as the level that corporate Hollywood went through to protect Harvey, because he owned the distribution rights to just about everything. All the money-making projects, he had the distribution rights, which is everything to Hollywood. And without Harvey, it was hard to make money, and money makes Hollywood go.
So that's why he got away with what he was doing for so long.
Yes.
Was that people were actually covering for him? Yes.
And I'm an audiobook fan, so it was the audiobook is read by Ronan. Okay. And I didn't realize this, but he was he's on TV, but he had a show on MSNBC. I think it was very short-lived. He, of course, makes joking reference to that, but I think it was several months. It got zero views outside his family, and so the show was canceled. So it was just kind of funny, but he's very self-deprecating, and he's like Harvard or Yale or some kind of educated. So he's extremely bright. And of course he's got, Mia Farrow and who's his father? I'm skipping.
Woody Allen.
So not one to throw rocks in a glass house. And even his personal situation comes up in the story, and he reveals, details that, you just don't even know what's going on in your own family sometimes with a sibling, and when there's abuse. So it's actually a thriller. It's not a downer. I mean, the subject matter is horrible, but the lengths that they go to reveal what's going on, and the women that step forward and risk everything professionally and their livelihood. They're actresses, and that's how they make their money. And Harvey knows that. So if Harvey says no, they get no parts. Everyone's afraid of crossing Harvey. So it's a real interesting book as far as kind of a thriller. How do we get this out to the public and protect sources? But you can only protect sources so long before it becomes by default. You kind of narrow down the suspect list, and it's okay. We know who went to Ronan, and several of them came together at once and decided to go public, and then that led to his demise. And I think he's in jail now.
Okay, and one of our viewers, Tim, asks, "Hey, can't you guys just talk in person?"
Is that Tim, our neighbor? Hey.
It might. We can't see it. There we go. Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow. Does he name names and tell real celebrity gossip in this, Michael?
Yeah, everything's disclosed, and I have to forgive me. I think it's one of the New York major publications, like New Yorker, or it wasn't the Times. Ronan was writing for I think of the New Yorker, and Harvey has strings everywhere, and corporate at this publishing house was getting threats of some kind of a financial nature, and the corporate level had their thumb on Ronan too, to not publish this information, even though this he had first person. He had tapes of these women telling these horrible stories. He's not making this up. It was something else.
Gotcha.
I was laughing at the Tim comments. Like, we live together.
We're going to have to invite our neighbor Tim to come on the show and see what Tim is reading.
Yes. That's what you're reading, Timothy. Yes. So if it's not our neighbor Tim, sorry.
So it's my turn. I get to talk about a book tonight. I don't always get to do that. I'm going to talk about Matt Haig's The Midnight Library. And I usually try to avoid books that have long waiting lists. I'm so sorry. I lucked into getting this book. So you do have a bit of a waiting list to get this one. But it's worth the wait. And I'll tell you a little bit. I love any book that's got the word library in the title. Oh, it's that Midnight Library. What's that all about? And this one was on someone's bestseller list, or they're talking it up for this year. That's a really great book. So, okay, doubly intrigued. Library, and everyone's loving it. So I jumped in, and it turns out it's a science fiction book. So if you're not a science fiction reader, this would be a great introduction, or if you want to knock that one off your list, a science fiction book. Because what it's about, this woman named Nora Seed, she is kind of at a really low point in her life. She's broken up with a boyfriend who wanted to marry her because she just didn't think he was the right one. She's not taken a lot of chances that she now kind of regrets not taking. She disappointed her dad, who wanted her to be an Olympic swimmer. She was this great swimmer when she was young, and her dad's like, you could do it. Her brother, she was in a rock band with her brother. She was the singer, and the brother was the guitar player, And then she broke up that, and the brother's like, we could be famous right now. We could be millionaire rock stars. And she has a good friend who took off to Australia and just started over in the wild. And she kind of always regretted not going with her. And she's just at the bottom. And then her cat gets run over.
Sorry.
Kind of like the last straw. And it's like, this is it. So she wants to die. So it's kind of left unknown. Does she take pills? What exactly she does? But she is to the point where she wants to die. But she wakes up in this library. And the librarian in this library is her favorite beloved librarian from school, who always made her feel better when her parents were going through everything and fighting and everyone was being mean to her. This librarian always gave her a shoulder to lean on and a good book to read. So she's in this library that looks different, but it's got her old librarian in it. And the librarian tells her, if you choose one of these books, you can undo a regret. She has a book of regrets to look through if she wants to get some ideas. Here's everything you've regretted your whole life. It's this big old book, and she opens it, and it's just feeling worse and worse every time she turns the page instead of feeling better. But she says, pick one, and you can undo that and see what your life would be like right now. Okay, so for instance, the swimmer. She chooses one in which she didn't give up swimming. She did what her dad wanted, and she went for Olympic gold. So she opens this book, and she jumps into the life at the age she is now. So in that one, she has won Olympic gold medals. She now does like motivational speaking because she's a winner, and she did all this, and she talks to groups of people about how to go for success and not give up. And but you see that part of her life, and she's like, oh my goodness. And you see her father over there beaming at her. But then you also see the bad parts of that life. Like she's in therapy, and she's taking anti-stress pills to get up on stage. And her dad and she, even though she did what she wanted, her dad is still her grumpy old dad, and he's still never really happy. You know what I mean? And there's things, and there's other ripples that happened in this life that didn't happen in the other life. So, and what the librarian tells her is, if you find a different life, one that you didn't do what you regret doing, you can stay there and keep living from where you are now. But if you don't like it, just somehow the librarian will know she doesn't like it, that she's not happy there, and she'll come back to the library and she can try another one. So she goes through trying on these different lives and finding out what would happen and trying to figure out where she should be, where she belongs. And it's really fun to go through these other lives. If you like that movie Sliding Doors, or anything where you're going back and forth in time and trying on different things, that part is really fun. And ultimately, it's a really uplifting message. Plus, the book is really positive about librarians.
Good for that. Yeah.
So you have to love that. And I'm going to jump to another quickie. Just as soon as I finished it, my reader told me, because I was on the Overdrive or the Libby app, said, hey, if you liked the Midnight Library, you might like In 5 Years. I figured, why not? Let's give it a shot. So if you have to wait for Midnight Library, In 5 Years has a little wait, but not as long. And it's another time travel book. I will confess I didn't like it as much. But it does, the other one was really more uplifting, and the other one had that English accent, yes. And then you could always go with Mike's Catch and Kill. So In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle, that's one that she wakes up our protagonist, whose name is Danny Cohen, who's a great lawyer in Manhattan, and she has the perfect life. But she wakes up after a party, and she's in 2025, and she's living with a different man in a different place.
No stress there.
Yeah, after an hour, she wakes up again, and she's back in 2020, and she just thinks this was some kind of... She actually goes to psychotherapy to try to figure out if this was real or what happened to her. And she kind of forgets about it and learns to live with it until 4.5 years later, when she meets the guy in her team.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 yes. And she meets him because he's dating her best friend.
Ooh.
So it's a little too kind of chick litty for me, but it's still fun, and the time travel is fun. So if you need a quick read while you're waiting, that one's a great one too. Michael, I'm going to say thank you for filling in for Terry for us.
I'm not Terri. Sorry about that, fans out there, Terri, and my beloved.
Yeah, and KDL watchers, please watch the What We're Reading schedule, because Terry will be back.
Polar vortex hopefully will pass.
And we'll be back next Tuesday night at 6:30 to talk about what we're reading.
And it won't be me with luck.
You're fabulous, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.